In the previous video, we saw how to create a chatbot using LLM chain. And in this video, we will see how to create a chatbot using conversation chain in LangChain. As a first step, install OpenAI and LangChain. Give your OpenAI API key for authentication purposes. We are going to use the LangChain chat model because GPT 3.5 Turbo is less expensive than the text models. So we import chat OpenAI. I need to import conversation chain and prompt template from LangChain. I also import conversation buffer memory to store the context or the history of the chat from langchain.change.conversation.memory. The first major difference between conversation chain and LLM chain when you use it in the context of a chatbot is that the conversation chain by default gives a prompt. So please know that I have not mentioned any information to the chatbot, but I need to give the history, which is maintained by conversation buffer memory, and I also have to provide the human input. To use the LLM chain, we need an object of the prompt template. History is automatically taken from the memory, and we have to provide the human input. Create an object for the chat OpenAI. Let's have a temperature of 0.7 to increase the amount of randomness, and provide the key for authentication. And the LLM object that is created is LLM. So next step, initialize the conversation chain, for which we create an object for conversation chain by passing the LLM model and the memory. In the memory, when we use a conversation chain, it is possible for us to say how we want the human to be addressed and how we want the AI to be addressed. Every time we're talking about a human, if I pass a human prefix argument, it says it's a customer. And if I pass the AI prefix argument, the AI is always referred to as the salesperson. This is an example of the human prefix and the AI prefix. So every time you see a customer, it means it was an input provided by the user. And every time you see salesperson, it was a response provided by the AI model. Now that we have created an object for conversation chain, let's try and print what is in the prompt template. Remember, we have not given it any additional prompt. When we run print conversation.prompt template, we see the following prompt. The following is a friendly conversation between a human and an AI. The AI is talkative and provides lots of specific details about its context. To reduce hallucination, we use the last line, which is, if the AI does not know the answer to a question, it truthfully says it does not know. This is the default prompt provided by conversation chain. And then we have the current conversation with the history and the human and the AI inputs. We can call the call function in the conversation chain class by passing the human input as argument. If you look at the output, we get it as a dictionary with the input, the history, and the response. When we print the memory buffer, we see that it has the customer which said, I want to buy TV, and the salesperson who replied to it saying, that's great. Buying a TV can be an exciting experience, and so on. Please note this was generated by the AI. Let me continue the conversation by giving that I need 55 inches for the TV. We see that the conversation object holds the input, the history, and the response. And the history is the previous response that was received also. That is, it says, that's a great idea. Buying a TV can be exciting. So all this information is also passed in the history. And this is what is relevant to retain the context when the conversation flows. Let me put an infinite loop to ensure that I have a continuous flow of conversations between the human and the AI, I get the user input from the keyboard and I end the conversation when the user inputs end. If not, call conversation on the user input and get the chat response. So this is performed till the user prints an end. Let's run it and see. I already have the following with me, that I want to buy a TV and the chatbot asked me if I wanted something specific. So let me say I want an Sony. So in the history, this is also added, and I also get a response for the fact that I asked for a Sony, saying Sony would be a great brand to consider. Let me continue the conversation by asking, do we have an Bosch? So the bot gives me an output saying that Bosch does not have a TV and that their primary focus is on home appliances like washing machine, dishwasher, refrigerator, and so on. So it actually given me a very valid answer as to why I do not or cannot purchase a TV from Bosch. Please note, I never asked it to behave like a salesperson, but automatically it took up the role of a salesperson. Well, let me end the conversation. We know how to create a chatbot using ConversationChain. Let's see how to count the number of tokens that we have used up during the conversation. For this, we import get OpenAI callback from langchain.callbacks. Get OpenAI callback is a function, and this is used as a context manager, and this is useful to track the token usage of every LLM call, for which we use total tokens. Total tokens is an attribute of the callback object, and it gives us the total number of tokens that we have used in an LLM call within the context that we have provided. So using these two, let's see how to count the number of tokens. I have written a function, count tokens. It takes the conversation object and the query as input. With get OpenAI callback as CB, we get the result in chain.run.query. Please note it would run the same way if I had given it as chain of query, which is what we have been doing so far. We were giving the conversation object followed by the user input. But the difference between using a run and using it this way is that when you use a run, only the conversation is found and the redundant information are not given. Now let's try to run this. So we print the total number of tokens, which is cb.total tokens. Call in the second part of the code that I have written, I get the user input. I stop the conversation when the user enters end, and I count the number of tokens. I pass the conversation chain object, which is conversation, and the query, which is user input. And the response, I get it as a chat response, which I print it in bot. Let's try running this. What other options do I have? It says that I've spent a total of 1,403 tokens, and this includes all the previous conversations that we have had so far. And since I gave chain.run of query, you can see that the way we have the output is the user and the bot information only. Whereas if I had called it with a call method, I would have had the entire chat history here as a dictionary. And now let me end the conversation.